We're back with Season 8, Episode 17, The End in Friend. In other words, this is the episode in which Rarity and Rainbow realize they're not friends and then become friends again. So... Oh, I have the music turned up a little bit high. Sorry, we're doing the music comparisons earlier. My bad. One of the things I've noticed as we've been going through Season 8 is how much more Season 8 is focused on... I'm saying focused wrong. Is made for adults. Now, don't mistake me. Obviously, this is still a kids show, or whatever you want to call that. But... listen, DoorDash is amazing, Traith. I actually don't use DoorDash, funnily enough. Mostly because DoorDash doesn't do all that well. Like, their app is kind of not great, and they don't offer the tracking I need, and so I stopped using DoorDash. Anyways. So... the show feels more aimed at the adults who are watching it in the more recent season. Now, we've kind of pointed out a few of these as we've been going through, but I think this is one of the best examples. Rainbow and Rarity want to hang out despite having scheduling issues, because Rarity is very busy, she is a successful person, and again, one of our ambitious people, and Rainbow is really busy because she has a whole career thing going on with the Wonderbolts, and is actually a trainer now, because she's very ambitious, as we've mentioned before. So both of them have very little time for each other, and both still have to schedule around making that. I'm sorry, that is very much an adult problem, isn't it? Oh yeah, both are also teachers, which is just mind-boggling on top of all that. So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. They actually have to schedule time to hang out with Gary and Pax, pretty much literally on a day-to-day kind of a basis. We schedule it out about a week in advance, but there are certain days where it's just, nope. Mondays, nope. Thursdays, nope. Just completely. Everything else is more debatable, depending on the specific time of the week. Yeah. Anyways, fun will now commence. You joke, though. Scheduled fun is fine, because what we're doing is scheduling time to just hang out. We're just being adults about it. There's nothing wrong with that, really. Now... sorry to completely remove your Voyager reference, but it's a fairly common thing, and most people I know who are in the adult range do exactly the same thing. If you've ever raided in an MMO, if you've ever had a board game night, if you've ever had a D&D night or some other kind of tabletop thing, then you've done the same thing. And you know exactly how hard it is to have that one time where everyone can be together. So... how can we possibly be friends if we have nothing in common? We've already covered this before, back in Uncommon Bond. Moving on. They directly reference the Season 1 episode, where Rarity was out of character. But that's okay, it was Season 1, so I was willing to forgive that. It just wasn't a great episode. And they directly reference the Season 5 or 6 episode, where Rainbow Dash was being accused of stealing the Whatcha-Fig. No, she was being accused of sending what's her... point is, it was the mystery episode. I can't think of the name of it. So, okay, sure, that's kind of cool. They might be their only two connecting episodes. Something I've been wanting to track, in this series especially, since this is something of an ensemble show, is how many connecting episodes there are. What I mean by that, one of the things I like to keep track of when it comes to shows is how often characters interact with each other, because one of the things I've come to discover over the recent years of analyzing television is the connecting threads between characters are where the real meat of storytelling lies. You know, Tucker is cool, T'Pol is cool, but Tucker and T'Pol, that's the power combo. Odo is a nice character, Quark is a nice character, but the way the two interact, that's what really makes that work, and so forth and so on. I can name other examples, but you get the concept. So... connecting threads between characters and how often they get screen time is something that's interesting to me, especially since some get fairly common connecting threads. Like, there's a fairly large amount of episodes, I don't know an example, but between two characters, whereas there's far, far fewer between two other characters, as we've kind of mentioned a few times before. Like I said, I'll look up the stats on that and figure that out later, because right now my life is being completely consumed by the theater. So they don't do much together. Okay, so we got an episode with the two of them. Okay, so far I'm with you. And so they decide to have a day of fun where they're going to do things that one person likes and then the other person likes. Now, that's not actually a bad idea, overall. I mean, God attack. That is a form of compromise, after all. If I'm hanging out with... God, I don't know an example here. We'll make up someone. Let's see here. Blue, come here for a sec. Okay. Let's assume Blue here, who's mugging for the camera. She really happens to like American football, a.k.a. gridiron. Now, I don't. I happen to like football, a.k.a. European football. So one thing we could do, and this is a valid thing, is one night when we have time together to hang out, we could watch an American football game, and one night we can watch a European football game. And that's something we can do. The thing is, what you have to do is you have to give a damn about the person. The way this tends to work out in real life is I care more about Blue than I do American football. So I'm not into the game, but I know she is. So I'm trying to be into the event because I'm into her, right? And the same thing in reverse. She doesn't care about European football, but she's into me, and therefore she wants to, engage. So you can do things, like you can ask questions, for example. Like, how does that work? Why is that of course, I don't actually know American football that well. What's offsides? We'll go with European football, which I do know. What's offsides mean? How is it calculated? Why is that considered acceptable, or is that isn't? Why aren't they pausing the timer? What's overage? And just asking questions to try and engage the other person and to show your interest, at least in them, if not in the activity, right? Yes, I've put actual thought into this, but you know me, I'm a get along with everyone kind of person, so I've actually put work and effort into this kind of thing. By contrast, yeah, Neelix does do this a lot, actually, in Voyager. Both well and poorly. By contrast, what they do here is Rarity doesn't play buckball. She gets distracted, mostly because she's engaged elsewhere. And Rainbow doesn't do anything with the shopping, mostly because she's distracted, because she has nothing that's engaging her. Now, I'm going to go ahead and admit something that's probably going to make me unpopular. Mostly with Lord Harrimont, I believe. I love her boots. Glitter. Glitter, glitter, glitter. Glitter. Glitter, glitter, glitter. Glitter. And they just keep being glitter. The whole episode, they just keep being glitter, and they just keep leaving glitter trails everywhere. Praise to the animators who had to do that extra little, not just the animators, the editors, who had to do that extra little sound effect, and the extra little animation of the glitter falling off it, and then making the glitter trails every single scene she's in. That is technically difficult to do and very impressive. In fact, one of the things that's interesting about the episode is that it's very well presented. The presentation value is through the roof. Actually having to do that glitter thing, that takes a lot more work than it looks like, for example. And of course, the expressions on Rarity and Rainbow, but mostly Rarity. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on throughout this episode. A lot of excellent sound design, a lot of excellent presentation. To relate this to a game we're actually reviewing right now, Mario Sunshine's plot is stupid, and it's actually already gotten multiple negatives. But the presentation of the story in Sunshine is actually excellent. So the positives are actually outweighing the negatives. So, anyways. So then they decide to go do the one thing they both like, which naturally is going to turn out terribly. Actual demonstration of why you use helmets, by the way. That's a nice little tidbit. And the students are there constantly judging them because, of course, Rarity makes faces. There's glitter everywhere. They're arguing. And this then leads to one little tidbit I want to mention. Of course, Rarity would want to open a boutique in Cloudsdale. I mean, duh, right? You cannot tell me that Rarity would not love the unique challenge of designing fashion for people with wings. Because you'd have to design everything differently, right? You'd have to go from a completely different angle, and you couldn't just put a dress over the wings. You'd have to adjust and accommodate for that. And you'd have to make it so it's relatively put on and all this. You can't tell me she wouldn't love that. So that makes sense. She was apparently talked out of it by Rainbow, which is interesting. Not sure what I make about that. Then we get to Starlight's idea. Now, this is in character. I'm not going to say it isn't, but Starlight's idea here is... Oh, what's a good word? Stupid. Let's dissect this for a moment, shall we? Hey, Lore, you really like Final Fantasy VI, right? Yeah, I do. Why do you ask? Well, then why don't you like anime? Surface level comparisons, which is something I fight against constantly, is something that's very common amongst people, and trying to say, you like this book and you like this book, ergo, you should both talk about these books, is at best a surface level thing, because books is an absolutely gargantuan category of media and fiction, right? And point in fact, Daring Do and Shadowspade are fairly different styles of books. Shadowspade is meant to be slowly digested and dissected because it's a mystery. They want to engage you intellectually by paying attention and making sure you are paying attention to every detail. Daring Do is an action flick designed to try and get you engaged in the moment, trying to guess what's going to happen next, not because you're trying to solve it, but because you're so fully engaged in it, right? Very different approaches to literature. So, this isn't a great idea. Still on point for Starlight. Also, yeah, do you like Game of Thrones? Let's go watch MasterChef. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's like, yeah, surface level comparisons. I try not to be too negative about that because people just do that all the time, and it's pretty natural why they do that. Generally speaking, when someone does that, they do that because they're interested in it. I mean, most people who try to get me into anime are doing so because they like anime, for example. So it's not a negative thing, it's just a common thing, right? Anyways. So, we have more glitter. Gotta have the glitter. Very important. Okay. That's the first problem, the surface level thing. The second problem is she is forcing them to do this when they are disinclined. Now, how many of you... We actually just talked about contrarianism yesterday. How many of you are disinclined to do something, even if it's something you like doing, when you are being forced to do it? Probably one of my favorite examples of this is actually a video game, although there's actually a few dozen video games about this. How many video games are there where you do relatively precise or meticulous tasks over and over and over, right? Stardew Valley, or EVE Online, or Minecraft, right? Now, we enjoy those. You know why we enjoy those? Because we choose to do that, and because of a host of other reasons. If it was your job every day for 10 hours a day to sit down and do that, insert whatever game you want to there, that would drag on you in the exact same way that it does when it is actually your job. Most people do not like being forced to do things. We can put up with it, we might learn to deal with it, we might learn to cope with it, but in general, if you've got a situation like this, which is a lot more soft of a topic than, say, trying to get labor done, and you're trying to get two people to reconnect, forcing them to reconnect is just going to mean both of them are disinclined at the offset, just because you're forcing the issue. Oh no, not at all, Lord Hermon. I actually do like streaming. Although, technically, it would be something I hated if I was a typical streamer. If you'll forgive me for talking about this for just a second, because this has come up a lot lately. Most streamers and YouTubers cover either one game, one topic, like Star Trek, or one genre, like RPGs. That would drive me bonkers, for the exact same reasons that I just elucidated upon. The fact that I am being forced 10 hours a day to play Fortnite. Even if I liked Fortnite, which I don't, but let's assume I did. Let me pull up a game I do like. Heroes of the Storm. There. If I just had to play Heroes of the Storm over and over and over again, or even if we branch that out, MOBAs in general, and I had to bounce between LOL and whatever the deity one is, I can't think of the name of it right now, and Heroes of the Storm and whatever, that would destroy me. Now, granted, I've been playing a lot of platformers lately, but that's okay, because A, it's only been about a month, B, I love platformers, and C, I mean, come on, right? Oh, they do, Ross. They do, absolutely. The Trek rumination cycles were very difficult to push through, especially by the end there. I'm happy I did them. I'm satisfied with the work, but it gets to the point where I'm Star Trekking for 12 to 14 hours a day because I'm trying to smash through them as quickly as possible because I'm cramming, right? And it's just like you get my point though. Sorry, let's pull back to the episode. The point is trying to force two people who are not getting along to get along, generally speaking, is a failed objective right off the gate. So that's two things wrong with this. Hang on, there's actually a third one. This is wonderful. Starlight is focusing entirely on trying to build in a combined interest angle. In other words, what she's trying to do is try to get them to see how similar they are, how many similar interests they have. And this is when I really bring up Uncommon Bond. Because Uncommon Bond was entirely about that. The whole point, which, by the way, was a Starlight episode. The entire point of that episode was to try and emphasize that you don't need to have all these similar interests, and you don't need to be simpatico in order to actually be friends. There are lots of reasons to be friends that have nothing to do with practical or tangible. But I'm not going to repeat all that, I'm just mentioning it because we've already covered that. So then Starlight warps away. Yep, no, that makes perfect sense. They're arguing. I love the crowd going. And I love Twilight's overacting. The moment Starlight is like, I need reinforcements, warps out, and then warps back, the moment that she did that, I was like, okay, whatever's going to happen next is staged. And then I see the scene with Twilight, who is doing a wonderfully hammy job of overacting. No, gosh, it's great. It's a perfect balance, by the way, because sometimes when people do overacting, they go further than this. Like if you were to gauge the overacting here, they go way over here. Oh no, this is something that I can't do, or whatever, right? We've actually seen this show do that exact thing. Instead, she is overacting, but only a bit. She's just overemphasizing her acting, as opposed to actually overacting it, right? She does a great job of it. So that was a treat. Oh no. Oh, I feel so much better knowing you two are on the job. It was great. I love it. Then, okay, they're gonna look into this thing. We gotta find the Amulet of Starlight. The Amulet of Aurora. This is when the presentation of the episode really sells me, because so far the episode hasn't been all that great. And up until this point in the episode, I'm just like, okay. It's below average, I would say. But then what they do is a whole lot of excellent presentation in terms of voice acting, in terms of the animation, in terms of the storyboarding of how the action scenes play out, in terms of how they use the camera for certain scenes. There's a whole lot of excellent presentation covering what is ultimately something that's not really all that interesting. Something that I do like, Rainbow specifically notices the amulet is made of azurtanium, or azurantium, or how she said it. This is actually something we've covered before, so I'm only going to cover this briefly. Some people presume that you're stupid, I don't have a better way to put that, or, not intellectually inclined, if you tend to not get into typical stuff, like being able to pay attention in class, for example. That's a very common example of this. But no, as we've discussed many, many times, everyone just has their own interests, their own things that they geek out about, and their own things that they enthuse about. Rainbow has a very careful and keen eye for detail. We've seen this many times. It's just it has to be about something that engages her. Similar, Lord Aramon. Not quite the same. That would be much worse. But yeah, an enthusiast will be able to tell you all sorts of details about something they're into. And then just be kind of like, when it comes to something they're not, right? Anywho, so then they have the path going into the air, and I'm like... And then they show the footprints, and I'm like, okay, it was Spike. Got it. I know that's not the mystery. It's just interesting that they don't pick up on that because they're so focused on finding it. So, the episode... This part of the episode is what salvages it from being pretty bad for me. it focuses entirely on the ways the two fit each other, which is exactly what I was just talking about. In fact, I referenced it if you were paying attention. Odo and Quark. Odo and Quark have almost nothing alike, almost nothing in common, but they have great chemistry together. The connecting point between them, that connecting relationship, is very strong and very well developed. It actually makes me sad that we've never had more Rainbow and more Rarity, because it's a similar concept. Not quite the same, and nowhere near as good, but still, it's a similar concept. The two actually complement each other reasonably well, and that kind of pseudo-antagonizement is a decent thing. And I realized, as I was typing this, that this actually fits Applejack a little bit better, doesn't it? Because Applejack and Rarity have already been through this arc. They started out antagonizing, you remember, all the way back in Season 1. And then they had this exact same thing, the Odo and Quark relationship, right? And then that was something that developed, and the two remained very good friends and very well connected every time the two were actually on screen with each other. And I found myself thinking, wait, hold up. Someone who's into buckball, but finds fashion boring, and who doesn't have a lot of similarities with the character. And I stare at this and I think, I wonder if this was originally intended to be Applejack focused, and, like we just pointed out, someone in the office, someone in the writing room said that couldn't possibly work. Because Applejack and Rarity are already very strong friends. We need this stupid breakup scene for no reason. It just makes me think. I suppose the problem here, so then, okay, they do the toothpaste thing, and that's neat and all, and then there's the extremely obvious path, which is just 5 feet to the left. Then they go up to the door, and you can lockpick a door with a heel. I'm not even going to touch that nonsense. And then they go to the end, and there's the tunnel, and yada yada. You're still friends, the end. Okay, cool, whatever. Wraps up a little bit too, but the thing I want to comment on is I feel like the actual theme of the episode should have been focused entirely on the argument more than anything else. I know that sounds like a strange thing to mention, but let me put it this way. The episode itself seems to be more about, we have nothing in common, why are we friends? Which I think is not a good direction for them. Again, it's a repeated point, as I've pointed out more than once. In fact, if we're being really serious about it, this has already come up twice. Once with Rarity and Applejack, and once with Starlight and Sunburst. But more to the point, I feel like the actual focus on we have an argument and then we're still friends is more valuable and more useful and more interesting of a topic to focus on. This is something the show has kind of covered, but usually only briefly as a quick aside. You know, the friends have an argument and then they're still friends, right? Now, that would require a total restructuring of the episode. What we would have to do is we'd have to focus the episode entirely on something happening, which causes the two to have a significant argument. And then everyone's like, oh, and then what I would do is I'd probably shift away from them. Shift away from Rarity and Rainbow. And focus on the kids. And kind of follow them for several minutes as they're just like, oh my god, I can't believe it. Are they both teach at the same school, they both live there. How do we do this? How are we going to make this work? And they just kind of gossip, and they start working themselves up about how this friendship is totally over. And then Rarity and Rainbow walk by in the background laughing and talking to each other. And they're just like, wait, what? But you were arguing and shouting. What was that nonsense? Like, what do you mean? And play it off, right? Because that is how that works in real life. If I've said this before, if you are actually friends with someone, that argument you just had isn't going to break up that friendship. Now, there are things worth breaking up a friendship over, but you get my point, right? Just because we have a tiff or a fight doesn't mean it's all over. And sometimes, and this is true too, sometimes especially adults, just need to vent. And unfortunately, sometimes we vent at each other. As long as that's just verbal, that's... well, it's still bad. But it's not as bad as it could be. And okay, we've had our yell, we've had our argument. Chilled off for a bit. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's work back. And so far, that's all right. Like, so I would have probably focused more of the episode's camera on the young, on the Student Six. And focus on them kind of getting used to this idea. If I was just writing this episode, I'd probably have there be an argument between two of the Student Six, too, to kind of symmetry, the whole thing. And so those two are thinking, well, like, I would actually have a scene where, I don't know who, one of the Student Six is sitting off there with one of the other ones, like, I can't possibly still be friends with him, right? After all the mean things I said, I didn't even mean it. I was just so angry. Oh my God, I feel so... I can't possibly. And like, try to focus on how they, as younger students, don't really know how this works yet. And then, of course, they see Rainbow and Rarity, and it's like, what? And you get the general idea. Oh, I love Rarity Slow the River Please. The animation in this episode is stellar, as it always is in Season 8, so that's just kind of whatever. Anyways, point being, we gotta rate this episode. Now, I was looking at this earlier. This is, So this is written by GM Barrow. She's done an orange, a blue, a purple, and a red. That is a hell of a spread. Now, I do think that certain elements of the presentation of this episode pull it up from being terrible. But... no scheduled fun. Honestly, I feel like this is a yellow episode. That's hysterical, Donner. Like, I feel like it's just average. Overall. They don't really do much with it. They don't really extend upon it or expand upon it. It's repeated points that they don't do much good with, but it is bolstered by, again, excellent presentation in both animation, voice acting, and the general tone and approach. I do feel like if it wasn't for the "oh no" section, that this, you know, and the adventure, the mini adventure, this episode would be substantially worse. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much everything other than the main plot is pretty good in this episode. So yeah, no, I'm gonna go ahead and call this average. Which means that this woman who has written this episode has now done a blue, yellow, orange, red, and purple. So if we could get a green episode from her, we can complete the set. Possibly Lord Helmet. I don't mean that as a negative thing. I have noticed that most people, amongst like my friends and family, don't even notice presentation until I point it out. And I have to admit, a lot of that's just because that's something I'm a geek about. I love producing, right? So when it comes to animation, video games, music, whatever, I love all those little details. I love all those little nuanced things, and the fact that there's all these different toys and all these different stuffed animals and all these different games back here, which are very carefully laid out in a specific order that if you pay attention, you'll see there's actually thought and work put into it, and so forth and so on, right? I eat up that kind of stuff partially because I do those kind of things. I don't even know how many people have noticed how many tiny little details I've put in the Trek rewrite, for example, or the World of Lorecraft series, or the theaters. So it's possible that I just noticed that stuff because that's my enthusiasm thing, right? That's what I'm a geek about. Anyways, yes, her purple was during done. Who else? Who has everyone done every color? Hang on. So there's a blue, green, yellow, orange, red, purple. So Michael Vogel has done every color. Mm-hmm. Hang on. Yeah, Megan McCarthy has done every color because she wrote Flutterbrudder. And Dave Polsky has also done every color. Because he has one purple and two blues, but also yellow, green, orange, red. Yeah, so he's done everything. That might be it. Yep, nope, that's it. M.A. Larson is still the king of purples. Good lord. Josh Haber is pretty high up there. Josh Haber has tons of reds and multiple purples under his belt. Just some really excellent episodes there. But anyways, next episode is Yakety Sax by Michael P. Fox and Will Fox. Polsky has... hang on, let me go back to Polsky here. Where's Polsky? Polsky's one purple is Season 4, Episode 19, For Whom the Sweetie Belle Tolls. Megan McCarthy has 3. No, where was I? I lost my place. For God's sakes. Ox. There they are. Okay. So I know nothing about this episode other than the fact that it's hated by the fans. I only knew that 5 seconds ago. So, I'll see you in about 30 minutes. I know that Ross isn't even watching it. That's not a good sign.